Hey, greetings everyone. It is GleeCon, and I'm back with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thank you so much for tuning in, you amazing people out there. On our last episode, we finished up Stone Talon Mountains. We've got another tick in the box here as we continue to chug along to Earth Fury, now known as Muln. Finished Stone Talon. He's ready to do Thousand Needles. So we just have to finish up Hillsbrad, which we're like halfway through with our Forsaken, and then everyone is caught up. All of our 9 characters have each completed 3 zones, and just as a frame of reference, to get to 60 and be primed for endgame content and even start doing some of it, it's about 10 zones, so we are roughly a quarter of the way there. So I'd have to look back to see when we started doing the Classic, but the goal would, of course, be to finish Classic in less than 2 years, but even if we didn't, which, I mean, we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary in about a month anyway, so I'm hoping we can get there. Some of the later stuff, some later zones, I think we might streamline it some. We shall see. I already feel like it just feels a little faster the way we've been doing it lately. I feel like only over the past, month or so, we've busted out a few zones. So I'm pretty confident at the, at the rate that we've been going. It's taking us about 2 to 3 weeks to finish a zone, when that's with all the side content with this magazine. So if you did that 9 times 7, we have 63 zones remaining. Oof. But some of that will have some overlap. But anyway, so that would be 63 zones at the outside. And again, it will be less than this. So you would take 63 times 2.5 weeks. That's 120. That's 150, 160 weeks. So if we followed our current track, that would put us at 3 more years until we finished Classic. So altogether, probably close to a 4-year. Even then, I still think we would make progress. But there's a lot of double dipping. So you could really chop some of those zones out if we really wanted to look at it right now. We have 1 double dip with Alliance on Duskwood. We have another with Thousand Needles for the Horde. We have a double dip just coming up, like for instance in this 4th set we have Duskwood, Thousand Needles, Hillsbrad, Stranglethorn Vale. That's 4, Wetlands 5. That's it. We really have 5. So just for instance, in the next round, cut 4 of those zones off, which means cut about 10 more weeks off of that. And that's going to happen almost every cycle. So you could say, let's say we cut around 20 zones out. And as we get to the end, we're going to really condense our characters some. But you could easily take a third of that 3 years away. So that still puts us at 2 more years at the rate we're currently going. I think some of our side reading will get caught up at some point. And but even so, that takes a little bit. So at the current rate, it wouldn't be a surprise for 2 more years. So that means it will have taken us 3 years to get through Classic. But Classic is far and away the largest zone to do, the largest set. Now when we hit Burning Crusade Classic again, we're going to start over, which is really Wrath of the Lich King Classic. We're only going to focus on a couple characters, 1 Horde, 1 Alliance. And my hopes is that'll get sped up. That'll be a little faster. But we'll see how that one goes. But that could take us another couple years. So it's going to be a little bit of time, I think, before we get caught up. Now, once we actually hit the Burning Crusade content and the Wrath of the Lich King content and stuff like that, now it starts to get much smaller because you start to take 2 to 3 weeks over approximately, 7 zones. And now each one of those expansions would take us less than half a year. So once we really stop regrinding Classic, we could finish each expansion in about 6 months. I'm sorry I'm getting so meta into all of this. I don't know why I got sidetracked. So take it away, rewind, I'll go back, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. That's kind of the state of the drawing board where it goes behind the scenes in my notebooks and spreadsheets when I'm trying to figure out exactly what we're doing. I love every single subscriber that I get. Every time someone tunes in and gives me a watch, makes a comment to help me improve, I greatly appreciate it. And I really just, this might just be me pie in the sky, but I just can't help but thinking about the future and the ways that the show can become better, and with each iteration, each expansion, what things we can do differently, and that gives me a lot of hope. So those of you that will have been along for the ride the entire time, you guys rock. You guys, you're like my family at this point. All right, so we've been playing through through Classic. We finished off that zone. We teamed up with someone. It actually took a couple hours to do that episode because we did a couple tough non-soloable quests for level 26, and we teamed up with some people that we found along the way. And we've also been reading through the World of Warcraft official magazine, and in this magazine, this is the 4th issue of the 1st volume. It's the penultimate issue. There was only ever 5 before they canceled it. Last time we read about the different zones of the Cataclysm, and maybe some other little stuff too. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. It's been a couple days. Oh yeah, the pop culture references, which we talked about before. But now we're going to read about each dungeon that came out. So stay a while and listen to a tour guide to Cataclysm's dungeons. And yeah, let's see how this goes. It says the Cataclysm 5-player dungeons offer equal parts lore and loot, making for a story-driven romp through some legendary locales. Whether it's for the loot, the leveling, or simply the fun, 5-player dungeons in World of Warcraft offer a sweet spot for players looking for a cooperative challenge, and have featured some of the most played and well-known PvE content in the game. The 7 new instances in Cataclysm, along with updated classic dungeons like the Heroic Dead Mines, see the sidebar, run the gamut of looks and lore, but each has its own specific place in the World of Warcraft canon. For the discerning knowledge hunter, such as us, each new Cataclysm dungeon sheds more light and sometimes more darkness onto the war raging between the 4 elemental planes and the titanic struggles between Azeroth and the greatest threat it's ever known, Deathwing. Make sure to take the time to see the sights too. Our artists and designers put a lot of time, sweat, blood, tears, and love into these dungeons, says Alex Afrasiabi, lead world designer. There are so many little details all over our dungeons that it would behoove you to stop and look around. Every time I see that guy's name, I can't help it. It's like a little cringe of just how the mighty have fallen, and you just, all the things that happen behind the scenes with that specific guy. But the way that his name pops up in so many articles just shows what a huge person he was to World of Warcraft. All right, Blackrock Caverns. This is, I believe you find this one in the Twilight Highlands. Maybe we're going alphabetically. If you're nostalgic for Blackrock Spire, Blackrock Caverns sends players into Blackrock Mountain for a brand new adventure. For those who frequented any of the game's original lava-laden instances, the look of the series of subterranean tunnels will be instantly familiar. In addition to the volcanic aesthetic, caves and tunnels give way to grand winding halls of stone that bear the glowing violet influence of the Twilight's hammer. One of the first instances players have access to in Cataclysm, Blackrock Caverns is home to a variety of interesting denizens, not the least of which is Raz the Crazed, an ally and friend of Finkel Einhorn, who first appeared as a quest giver, trapped inside the belly of the beast in Upper Blackrock Spire. Raz might be better named Raz the Insanely Angry, judging by his inclination to pummel every living thing in his path. Despite his incredibly large fists and accompanying anger management issues, Finkel thinks Raz needs saving, which becomes the through line for the Blackrock Caverns story. Then there's Beauty, the giant corehound counterpart to the aforementioned beast. Being the grand dame she is, Beauty has a full court of puppy mobs, Buster, Lucky, Runty, and Spot, none of whom are very interested in playing fetch. The rest of this Deathwing-sanctioned labyrinth serves as both a supply chain and experiment center for roaming mobs of cultists, priests, and zealots, all of whom are hard at work churning out a steady stream of evolved Twilight Zealots, some of the more formidable foes in the dungeon. Cultists turned into deadly Draconids, but making the perfect Draconid requires a secret ingredient, Twilight Energy, which the cultists have learned to farm from Twilight Drakes. Toward that end, the cultists keep a captured Twilight Drake near the entrance to the Halls of Awakening. Somebody called Detta. Okay, there's the Throne of the Tides. Although the dungeon is underwater and aquatic vistas abound, players will be fighting on dry ground. The difference is between Throne of the Tides and Blackrock Caverns couldn't be greater. Set inside the Abyssal Maw, which players can reach through the new Vizier Zone, the Throne of the Tides boasts a shimmering Atlantean look. Replete with aquamarine tones and sea-inspired architecture, many of the walls are lined with opulent and mysterious shields that keep the air in and water out, though errant Naga warriors can and do pass through to attack. This underwater bestiary is understandably stocked with troves of Naga, water elementals, and yes, even new kinds of murlocs. The ornate oceanic walls are also stalked by various servants of the old gods, who line the way to Ozumat, the final of 4 bosses. A giant squid-like thing, players get a glimpse of Ozumat fairly soon after entering the instance, but he really comes into play during the concluding standoff between he and Neptulon the Tidehunter, the elemental lord of water. Neptulon controls a legendary weapon of Frostmornian proportions that is said to have the power to control the very seas themselves. Alright, so that's 2 dungeons. And now we have the Halls of Origination. I'm pretty sure this is in Uldum. Mixing Titan culture and Stargate-esque Egyptian chic, Halls of Origination is an ancient construct designed to protect a host of old world antiquities dating back to, spoiler, the origins of the world, and specifically a secret treasure that could threaten all life on Azeroth were it to fall into the wrong hands. Like the lost city of the Tol'vir, the exterior of the instance reads Egypt with a processional pathway leading to a rather understated pyramid, but, like Naxxramas' deceivingly diminutive superficial size, the small stature of the building doesn't really convey the breadth of its content. That is to say, this Titan stronghold is a larger instance with multiple wings and 7 bosses who are based loosely on well-known gods from the Egyptian pantheon. Inside, the stone floors of the winding halls peek out through heaping piles of sand, while oversized architecture, see the skyscraping blue tubes in the Maker's Rise for a glimpse, and Egyptian relics adorn the walls. The rooms go heavy on gold and green in both wall treatments and lighting, and the music would make a good soundtrack for a road trip to the Well of Souls. Experienced lorehounds will immediately recognize Bran Bronzebeard from his role in both the 5-player Halls of Stone Dungeon and Ulduar Raid. Bronzebeard helps parties uncover the mysteries of Uldum and face off against the constructs of magic, life, chaos, and radiance. As in any self-respecting Egyptian enclave, an assortment of hieroglyphic-inspired baddies round out a desert-themed bestiary, including scarabs, snakes, vipers, and trogs. There are also camels, and not just NPC camels either. These are of the variety that players can ride. Here's some pictures of it. While there are plenty of monsters to be wary of, adventurers who find time to take in the sights will be amply rewarded. Heroic Deadmines, they've also kind of shoehorned in here. The Deadmines is one of the most run instances in World of Warcraft, so it makes sense that the developers chose to head back out to Moonbrook to give this classic instance a heroic makeover that both factions can enjoy. Much of what players know and love about the dungeon remains intact, that there are enough challenges to offer a renewed sense of a challenge. Enough changes to give that renewed sense. One of the challenges of updating Deadmines was that Westfall went through a lot of changes in Cataclysm. We are very careful to keep Deadmines in mind as we redesigned Westfall to make sure that whatever happened in the zone made sense and resonated in the Deadmines, Alex says. The story informed the revamp completely. Players are encouraged to play through the current Westfall before running the new dungeon. Most of the bosses and mobs have been replaced or updated, though nostalgic players will be happy to learn that many of the original drops are intact. The most notable changes appear over the course of several encounters, and not just boss fights. For instance, there is the pair of incredibly tough oafs who provide a gear check mid-instance. We won't give away the ending, but suffice to say the developers have used some serious elbow grease completely overhauling the Deadmines, so much so that old-timers and newcomers alike will eat it up like so much of Cookie's fresh meat. That's disgusting. Vortex Pinnacle, although they look the part, don't expect the bosses to be granting you any wishes. To get to this aerial instance, players need to head back to the old world, Kalimdor specifically, to a citadel situated in the sky, floating high above the desert of Uldum. Deathwing has sweet-talked the air elementals of Skywall, the elemental plane of air, into a dark alliance along with their ground-dwelling Tol'vir neighbors, bent on seizing control of the territory as a part of the foul Dragon Aspect's ongoing bid for total domination. Aesthetically, the city in the clouds includes nods to both Dalaran and Ulduar, and is comprised almost entirely of outdoor platforms intersected by tornado funnels that players must use to launch themselves from platform to platform. The ornate decor goes heavy on ceremonial staircases, open-air landings, and giant buttresses, but favors light and muted tones over brighter colors. Large columns line otherwise open dais-like stages with precariously unprotected edges. Not one of my favorite zones or instances. In combat, parties will face off against the vast army of Alakir the Windlord, a force made up of all things Gust, Vortex, Cloud, Storm, and Tempest. Being the domain of the sky, it wouldn't be complete without dragons, so expect to tangle with young storm dragons on the way to the second boss, a large winged guy named Altyrus. And that's not to say the Vortex Pinnacle is all airy and scaly things. The third act of the dungeon is rife with Tol'vir adepts, Templars, and weird winged beasts on the way to the final fight against the elemental genie Assad, Caliph of Zephyrs. The Stone Core. Situated in the chasms of Deepholm, the elemental plane of Earth, the Stone Core marks the site of Deathwing's ascent from the caverns he called home, while the Twilight's Hammer worked their elementium magic on his battered body. The cultists have remained here even after Deathwing's departure, considering the location hallowed ground. There's also some unfinished business with Millhouse Manastorm, the gnome mage that needed a serious escort out of the Burning Crusade dungeon, the Arcatraz. The Stone Core finds Manastorm double-crossing his faction and serving as a higher-up in the Twilight's Hammer. A2 Millhouse. This subterranean instance is cave-like and rocky, with groupings of crystalline stalactites and stalagmites lining the corners with eerily muted splashes of purple, green, and blue. Stone Core flares and crystal-spawned giants skulk the burrowed tunnels, which may have been hollowed out by creatures like Corboris, the first boss, who is a badass giant gyre worm. Eventually, the tangled enclosure of pathways gives way to larger, more open rooms, all teeming with hammer-wielding Stone Core bruisers and sneaky Stone Core sentries, the latter of whom will alert reinforcements if not stopped quickly. Farther inside come the Crazies, devout followers who will gladly give their own life to protect their sacred trust. There's a ton of them too, which is fortunate considering that the related Followers and Leaders quest tasks players with killing 101 of them. The instance comes to a Zerg rush of a finale in the throne hall of the High Priestess Azil, who gets support from a seemingly never-ending swarm of devotees, all set against a magmatastic backdrop. They were feeling themselves when they wrote this. The lost city of Tol'vir, look at the little pygmies. The home of the cat-like Tol'vir, the lost city bears an immediately recognizable Egyptian influence, complete with ziggurats, courtyards, and temples, peppered with palm trees and desert flora. The Tol'vir and the city have joined forces with Deathwing and Alakir, but their motivation is different from their airy allies. The Tol'vir here believe they suffer from the curse of flesh, a vex created by the old gods to help stony or metallic-skinned races assimilate with all the squishies, but everyone knows stone is better than flesh, and the promises of being freed from the curse is all the convincing they need to join with ranks with Team Deathwing. This big with pygmies. The only outdoor Cataclysm instance other than the Vortex Pinnacle, the Lost City, features a very civilized-looking network of streets and plazas, like you'd expect to see in places like Zul'Farrak and Zulaman. The Fiend Folio here includes everything from camels to crocodiles to pygmies, which, with many of the mobs toting pets and traps, especially in the, wait for it, Trappers Enclave. The most notable characters are Awe, one of the aforementioned pygmies, and his swarm of cohorts. The pygmies stack up in threes, one on top of the other like a pygmy Voltron, each with its own attacks and casting abilities. Grim Batal. It's a cool picture of a old one. The monsters standing in your way can be thinned out with a well-orchestrated bombing run. Looking like a darker and purpler version of Ironforge, this dwarven hold is filled with all kinds of nasty things. Not that dwarves aren't nasty too. The story behind Grim Batal dates back to the Second War, and Deathwing's clash with the other dragon aspects. Yeah, that's from the book we read, Dragons of Day of the Dragon. Though Deathwing was temporarily stopped and suffered the destruction of the demon soul, he fled with Alexstrasza's eggs, leaving the dwarven locale to the red dragonflight. But soon, the Twilight's hammer returned with the muscle of the black dragonflight to recapture Grim Batal, using the stolen eggs and red dragonflight as lab rats in their quest to build the Twilight dragonflight and dragonkin. In kind, the instance is very dragon-oriented, and almost immediately parties will run into a nice little mini-event in which a handful of captured red drakes can be freed and used for a single-pass bombing run to thin the ranks of the bad guys. Along the way through the dungeon, players can expect to go toe-to-toe with a wide variety of very disagreeable Twilight cronies and a handful of enslaved Grond brutes who hit like a truck. Really, all that matters, though, is that fire elementals can now take fire damage, which fire-dealing casters will make heavy use of herein. Huzzah! Yeah, that's one of the things which, I guess I get it, it makes the game more playable, but it's kind of dumb. I actually kind of like in Classic how, fire can't be hurt by fire, and, constructs can't be poisoned, stuff like that. While it does make those fights harder, you just slightly nerf those things, I feel like. Or make them weak against something else, but it does make you have to be a little bit more diverse instead of just hyper-focused on your spec. All right, so I think we have time for one more article. This one is called Guilds, and it's a picture of a bunch of player characters. ... Guild features. Roll on epic upgrades. Little chest there. With new guild features, you can do more than just get by with a little help from your friends. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Ghostbusters, and the Golden Girls. Life is better when you're surrounded by friends. And that's true for most podcasts. I've often, when we get to Burning Crusade Classic, I'm really going to try to shop a second voice. Even if it's my son. The problem is that he's kind of flaky. He doesn't, when it comes to staying with things for the long time and sucking him away from his other friends and making him play this, because that's what it would be coming to be, making him do it every other day. So I'll have to see. Maybe I can find some people online. My wife is not. She's not comfortable. She wouldn't be comfortable talking into the camera. She could possibly do it in the background, but then I feel like too much of what I say would be tempered with communication to her. So something I'm kicking around though, because there's a reason why very few podcasts and stuff like this are individual efforts. Not many of the successful ones. Because that repartee is very funny. You can get a lot of humor from that. And just think of different things. Even when I play with my wife, just little things she might throw in might change, what I'm saying. Cataclysm changed everything, and you're going to need a few trustworthy warriors and shamans and rogues at your side to battle the onslaught of Deathwing the Destroyer. Guilds have always added a social aspect to leveling, completing raids, and unlocking achievements. Now, in the wake of Deathwing's reign of destruction, guilds are stronger than ever. A guild can level alongside its members while they earn guild-specific achievements and unlock perks and rewards. Some of the new benefits add convenience, and others are designed to be staples of endgame combat, but to benefit from any of the changes, you can't go it alone. Whether a guild has 200 players who have been playing together for years, or a small handful of people that only recently banded together, all guilds begin at level 1 and can advance to level 25. Your guild's advancement rate will be similar to the individual leveling curve, explains Corey Stockton, World of Warcraft's lead content designer. In other words, earlier levels require less experience and are gained more quickly than later levels. Guilds earn experience through battlegrounds, dungeons, raids, and quests. A single player can complete some activities while others require help from guildies. When a player completes a quest that grants experience, the guild also receives a small percentage of that reward. Additionally, guilds have their own achievements that a single player or the combined efforts of any number of members can accomplish. Some achievements are grandfathered in, so a guild doesn't have to start from scratch and can benefit from the previous work of a new member. Guild runs, parties in which a certain percentage of the members come from the same guild, are the main way to obtain experience through PvP, combat, dungeons, and raids. There are some tricky cases, however. Older 25-player and all 40-player raids require only 8 guild members to qualify. Only rated battlegrounds count, and every member of an arena team, regardless of size, must belong to the same guild. To create a balance between small and large guilds, a daily experience cap controls the pace until a guild reaches level 23, at which point the cap is removed. While you're helping the guild earn experience, you'll also be increasing your reputation within the guild. Guild reputation increases from neutral to exalted, the same way it does with any other faction. Practically anything that gives experience will raise your reputation. You don't need to group with guildmates. According to Corey, guild titles such as Veteran of Guild Name are one of the reasons to raise your guild reputation. But more importantly, a higher guild level and a higher guild reputation mean better rewards. Alright, so they're just going to kind of get into the system, which is now just common. This is just one of the things you take for granted. You swap guilds. I have, made on my main, I've made the jump from neutral to exalted with probably 5 to 6 different guilds. It really doesn't take very much time at all. Anything you can do, a guild can do better. Leveling a guild and completing guild achievements unlocks a variety of bonuses ranging from cosmetic items and mounts to gear and buffs. These are intended to grant a variety of useful benefits, allowing you to generate more gold, earn experience more quickly, and buff your parties and raids cheaply with longer-lasting abilities, Corey says. These benefits come in 2 flavors, perks and rewards. Whenever a guild levels, it unlocks a perk. Almost all perks are passive and automatically applied guild-wide. Many perks make leveling a low-level character easier. Perks that award an increase in experience, a reduction in durability loss, increased materials gained from professions such as mining and enchanting, and increased honor and justice points all work toward lessening the strain on new tunes. For dedicated raiders, Mass Resurrection, the level 25 perk, can bring your entire raid back to life with a 10-second cast. To recap, higher guild level and higher guild reputation mean better rewards. Instead of buffs, guild rewards tend to be gear, pets, and heirlooms. Select achievements unlock these, and like perks, some carry reputation requirements. Once the guild unlocks the item, anyone in the guild can purchase it, even if he or she didn't complete the achievement. Rewards usually provide convenience, not power. For instance, after the guild crafts 3,000 flasks in Cataclysm, players can purchase the Big Cauldron of Battle, which essentially turns 12 flasks into 17 flasks. Instead of granting a new, more powerful flask, the guild reward recognizes that the group has the need, determination, and ability to create a large number of flasks and helps them keep up with demand. A few rewards do provide essential buffs, such as the Seafood Magnifique Feast that comes with the achievement for catching 10,000 fish from fishing pools. The recipe, which adds 90 stamina and 90 to another useful stat, replaces Fish Feasts as the go-to raid meal. All of the guild rewards with links to the achievements that unlock them are in the rewards tab of the new guild user interface. I do miss having a guild-like tab in Classic. I'm always looking for it. What with guild power comes guild responsibility. Managing a guild and understanding the roles everyone plays is one of the biggest challenges a guildmaster faces. The addition of guild achievements, perks, and rewards increases the importance of an individual player's involvement. The revamped guild user interface allows not only the guildmaster, but also every other member to keep track of their guildie's activities. The guild window is now broken up into 5 tabs: Guild, Roster, News, Rewards, and Info. Each gives insight into the guild's progress and can help players efficiently level the guild and earn perks and rewards. The Guild tab gives a bird's eye view. The top of the tab shows the guild experience bar, and the bottom shows a player's guild reputation. Sandwiched between are a brief breakdown of recent news and achievements and a list of unlocked guild perks so you can quickly assess what's been going on. Need a beaming Earth Siege diamond cut but can't remember which of your 300 friends has the recipe? The roster tab lets you sort players by profession so you can find every jewel crafter or blacksmith or enchanter in the guild and search their recipes. You can look at one player's recipes or search all of the recipes known throughout the guild and see who has it and who's online. The roster tab also sorts by guild activity, settling any disputes over who does the most work for the team. Expanding on the information in the guild tab, the news tab generates a customizable list of recent activity. Options include guild and member achievements, raid encounters, and epic items looted, so you can see if that helm you've been hankering for it dropped when you missed the raid last week. Largely unchanged, the info tab is still the place to find the message of the day and guild information. Here, the Guildmaster can set rank levels, customize permissions such as guild bank access, and require certain guild ranks to use a BattleNet authenticator. The Info tab also houses an easily readable list of upcoming guild events which were previously only viewable in the calendar. While guilds now have access to more information, special buffs, and epic gear, the fun won't stop there. We're also looking into implementing a shared guild chat system that will allow multiple guilds to share custom chat channels, Corey says. We're also considering a looking for guild system to help both existing guilds and new players find great guilds. Both of these are in addition to new levels, rewards, and achievements. So grab a few friends and get to it. You're going to need all of these bonuses if you want to stop Deathwing from wrecking Azeroth. Mount up. Guild mounts let you show off and pledge your allegiance. Walking, running, and the deep run tram are all antiquated modes of transportation. These days, all of the cool players hit the streets and skies of Azeroth to top their favorite mounts. Whether you like a little flash or opt to show your allegiance, Cataclysm has you covered with new mounts ready for guild members to tame and conquer. If your guild takes down the raid bosses in Blackwing Descent, Throne of the Four Winds, and Bastion of Twilight, you'll rise from the ashes on a dark phoenix. This bird glows with a purple flame and tells the world of your accomplishment. The guild that has to have everything can raise 55 of their members' reputations to Exalted and receive a miniature version, the Dark Phoenix Hatchling Companion. Looking for something more customizable? When a guild reaches level 25, everyone receives one of two mounts depending on their faction. Those loyal to the Alliance find themselves bestowed with Golden King, a lion with a prominent and regal mane. Reminiscent of the blue and yellow flag, the lion exudes pride, nobility, and dominance. Guilds whose motto is for the Horde receive a mount that feels right at home in Durotar. An oversized scorpion with armor plating, the Korkron Annihilator represents the powerful, deadly, and cunning nature of the Horde masses. Both mounts carry a guild's tabard, perfect for charging a battleground to start the fight with a little intimidation. With these mounts, guilds can ride off into the sunset fully prepared for battle, or at the very least, an epic screenshot. So, I guess that was the end of the article? I don't know. Normally they have like a little stamp, but if you look, we're now going into BlizzCon, which we'll do BlizzCon 2010. Frame of reference, we just finished BlizzCon 2023, so that will be interesting for those of you that are familiar with how this current BlizzCon went, comparing it to the old one here. But we have another episode in the pipe, 5x5. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching, for listening, for bearing with me, even when I sometimes have these congested episodes here. But I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode of Lore of Warcraft.